पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णा प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः। प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृततुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला। अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैर्गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा। देवाय तस्मै नमः, देवाय तस्मै नमः, देवाय तस्मै नमः। Welcome to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. We have formally completed the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. But it is always good for us to go back and revisit what we have studied. At the end of each chapter we have been doing this. This keeps our memory fresh about the knowledge that we have gained through the study of this sacred scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the first chapter called the Vishada Yoga. Vishada comes from the root sad. Sad means Visharana, Gati and Avasadana. In the introduction to the Upanishad, Ishopanishad, Sri Shankaracharya speaks about this. Visharana is disintegration or destruction. Gati means that which is moving, that which is ambulant. And avasadana is that which is waning, that which is weakening, that which is depressing. So, when these things happen to us, that is, when we feel a kind of disintegration within ourselves, when we see a lot of violence and destruction which is happening today in the world, when we feel that we are unable to find any answers to the problems of life, then what do? We take refuge at the feet of the divine, or if we do not believe in the divine, we take refuge in some kind of intoxicant, alcohol or drugs or whatever it be, which of course will lead you into more. The second thing will lead us more into depression and more into destruction. Whereas when we take refuge at the feet of the divine, in fact, all great achievements have been achieved when they have gone through great trials and tribulations. When there has been intense anguish, it is then that great discoveries have happened. If that is so in the physical field, it is more so in the spiritual field or in our life. So this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is where Arjuna feels so helpless, so desolate at seeing his kith and kin ready to fight. Though he was a very strong person mentally, he loses at the time of seeing his own ready to fight. All his confidence wanes away, withers away. So he does not know what to do. So he takes refuge at the feet of Sri Krishna. Bhagavad Gita ends every chapter with a colophon. It is Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu. Gita is also an Upanishad, though Gita is called a Smriti. But yet, that is the scripture for guidance, yet it is given the status of an Upanishad, that is equal to the Vedas. And then Brahma Vidyayam, here it says knowledge, which comes through Yoga Shastre, through practical application. Science, if it is just science, is of no use unless and until science is assisted by technology. There is practical application of science has to be there. So here it says Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvadaha. This discussion, dialogue between Arjuna and Sri Krishna is captured in this Bhagavad Gita, and the colophon always talks about the theme of the whole chapter. For example, in the first chapter it says Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Vishada means desolate, depression or desolation. Vishada Yoga. And it is given the status of a yoga. It's wonderful. Yoga, what does yoga do to us? It unites us. Yoga unites the individual with the divine, with Paramatma. How can this desolation or depression unite us with the divine? Yes, it is only when we face trials and tribulations. We have mentioned here famous author of The Imitation of Christ, Thomas A. Kempis. He says it is good that we sometimes face trials and tribulations, for they take us nearer to God than any spiritual practice or than any scripture. Because when you are crying for help, it is at that moment that the Lord, or we see the Lord in front of us, we receive the grace of the divine in front of us. So that is why this first chapter is called as Vishada Yoga, the yoga of dejection or depression. So once that also, so anything, whether it is positive or negativity also has its positivities. Negative also has got its pluses or its positivities. So therefore, it is always not lost, provided, of course, provided we have a firm faith in ourselves that we shall overcome. If we lose complete faith and say, no, nobody is going to help me, I cannot be helped, then definitely you will not be helped. But if we have that firm faith that the divine is with me, or if you don't believe in the divine, that there is a solution for every situation and for every problem, once you have that firm faith, the solution will come through. There is no doubt about that. Only we need to have that faith. That is why Shraddhasva, Tadar Shraddhasva says the Upanishad. Have firm faith. Have firm faith in yourself. It repeats the same word. Shraddhasva, Shraddhasva. Have firm faith in yourself. You may have faith in all the gods and goddesses, but if you do not have faith in yourself, it is of no use, says Swami Vivekananda. So you need to have that firm faith that I will receive the grace. Yes, sometimes we do go through trials, tribulations, sense of depression and negativity, we do go through that. But through all of that, at the back of our mind, let there be that feeling that there is a solution for every problem and that we will be saved, that we will be helped. That is very important. And for this, one more point to be noted is that if we are convinced that there is the Atman within us, the power is within us, then we can draw from this power that is within us, draw strength from this power that is within us. We need to do it. Saying that I cannot do will not help us at all. I can, I shall, I will. These are positive assertions that we need to make to ourselves. So that is how the first chapter began, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. The second chapter that we studied, it was known as Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. So when we need some help, what do we get? We need some strength. And in order for us to use that strength, we need to have the knowledge of that. We need to have knowledge of that. So therefore, when Arjuna takes refuge at Sri Krishna's feet and says that you are the Lord and you must protect me, you need to help me. And when he becomes humble, that is a great lesson that we learn from the Bhagavadgita. Be humble. Only when you are humble, knowledge will reveal to you. If you become too egoistic, knowledge will never come to you. I know everything. Nobody can say anything to me. That kind of attitude doesn't help at all. If we are humble, then knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that water does not accumulate on a high mound. It can only accumulate in shallow water. That is, humility should be there. If we are humble, we bow down and then take the help of the divine, then the Lord will definitely come and help us. So in this second chapter, Sri Krishna uses a very unique method of teaching, because he first demonstrates to Arjuna the futility of leading an ordinary life. And he says, you have so much of power within you. Even as a warrior, you are one of the best of warriors. And this kind of weakness does not behove you, Arjuna. And he uses a very, very sharp language over there. Klaibhyam asmagamapatha. Says, do not yield to unmanliness. That means, do not become a namby-pamby personality. Become some, you are having so much of strength within you. You are having so much of power within you. Just express it, manifest it. So that is the first lesson that Sri Krishna gives to Arjuna. First he has to wake him up from his slumber or his stupor, and he gave this wonderful message, and he wakes up Arjuna and then starts guiding him. Then what does he do next? He places before Arjuna the highest possible state of perfection, the highest goal that one needs to achieve. This is a very unique method of teaching in Vedanta, in the Indian system of philosophy, wherein first the highest realization or the goal is enumerated, and then slowly and slowly the methods come. First, because you need to keep before you the highest goal that has to be achieved first. It should always be the guiding light to us. We may sometimes fall down, but yet we should be able to see that highest goal that we need to attain. So once the goal is fixed, then walking towards it becomes easier for us. We may feel sometimes tired, we may feel very exhausted, but yet if the goal is there in front, we can go forward. We will go standing at the foot, boys, gazing at the sky. How can you get up, boys, if you never try, says the poet. So standing at the foot doesn't, yes, it is good for us to stand at the step, but we need to make a movement further. That is how Sri Krishna talks about the highest goal to be achieved. And he gives the example of a sthita prajna, a person of equanimous frame of mind, sthita prajna. And he talks about the ways and methods by which the sthita prajna has his being in this world, how he behaves in this world, how he conducts himself or herself in this world is given in the second chapter, steady person of steady vision. And in the third chapter, Sri Krishna now starts giving instructions about how to achieve to that goal, how to become that sthita prajna, that one-pointed and person of steady wisdom. So there he enumerates the two paths. One is the path of Sankhya, that is the path of knowledge, and the path of yoga, that is the path of devotion and action. So one can perform all the duties that we are supposed to perform in this world by keeping before us these two paths open, the path of knowledge and the path of devotion and action. We have to perform all our actions. We need to keep on doing whatever we are doing, but with the knowledge that the divine is within me and that the divine is everywhere. And then we perform our actions as a dedication to the highest, the karma yoga. Dedication to the highest. Self-sacrifice is another method that Sri Krishna teaches in the third chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. And now then comes the fourth chapter, which is called as Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. True meaning of this karma yoga, that is the yoga done without any desire for results is possible only when one is established in the awareness, pure awareness of the self, or realization that God alone is and everything else is not. That is the Jnana Karma Sannyasa. Means all the actions that I am performing, yes, I am doing all the actions. Who is performing the action? See, I have mentioned here one incident in the life of Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi had a disciple, and he was with Maharshi for a very long time, since Ramana Maharshi came down from the Arunachala the hill, from the time the ashram was established till his end, he was with him. Naturally, he knew everything to be done, whatever has to be done in the ashram. He saw the ashram growing, and he went on looking after the needs of both Ramana Maharshi and the needs of other devotees, as well as the other animals that were there, the cow and other animals that were there. So he was doing all the work very diligently, no doubt. But as the ashram grew in numbers, more volunteers started coming. They also wanted to do some service, seva. So they used to come and they would be given some tasks. But ultimately, they would all come and ask him how to do it, what to do, etc. So, but then some of his importance was taken away by the so-called people who came later than him. So this brought within himself a kind of, you can call it jealousy or a kind of frustration within himself. See, formerly, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi used to call him for everything. Now he had others, he used to call others to do certain chores or work. So he thought that his importance has been lessened. So one day he came to Ramana Maharshi and said, "Enough of it. I have had enough of this here. I am working from the morning till night, and I am slogging, as it were, and I am tired of this. I do not want to do anything like of this. I am leaving. I am going." Ramana Maharshi just had a beautiful smile on his face, and he said, "My dear," just heard him for some time, and then he said, "Do you know why you feel so tired? Why you feel so frustrated?" I said, "No, I do. I have a lot of work to do. So naturally I feel very tired, I feel frustrated." So he said, "No, it is not that. It is the feeling that I am doing this. It is that feeling that you as a being, you are doing it. That is the cause of all of this problem that you are facing. If you can disassociate that I from yourself and put in God there, the divine over there, and think that the divine is doing work and that you are a mere instrument, then you will not have this difficulty at all. You will not have this depression at all." So this is a great lesson that we learned, and this 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it says that Sannyasa, that means give up all the responsibility unto me. Feel that I am doing. That means the Lord is doing it through you. You be only a conduit. Yes, the physical body will have its weaknesses. There is no doubt about that. But mentally you just dedicate that to the divine and do not take ownership of the work that you do. That is how the fourth chapter discusses this point very clearly. And then we come to the fifth chapter. The fifth chapter is the chapter called Karma Sannyasa Yoga. This also discusses the path of knowledge and the path of work, how to perform our actions and how to dedicate it to the divine. So the different paths have been shown in the fifth chapter. The sixth chapter, the very important chapter which we studied, the chapter called Dhyana Yoga, the path of meditation. It begins with the reinforcement of the idea that we need to perform all our actions in a detached spirit. Because meditation is not possible, I will repeat it, meditation is not possible if there is no detachment. Because when we sit for meditation, if our concerns and worries weigh us more, we won't be able to meditate. We'll be thinking of the problems that we have because we feel that we are responsible for it, that I am doing it and therefore I am responsible for it. There is no detachment over there. So, in the beginning itself, Sri Krishna reinforces this idea that you need to develop a sense of detachment in order to enter into this Dhyana Yoga, into this yoga of meditation. So from the verses 10 to 32 of the sixth chapter, Sri Krishna deals with the practice of meditation, the methods of practice of meditation. And then again from 33rd to 47th verse of the sixth chapter, he also discusses the difficulty of concentration, difficulty of inward concentration. What are the antaras or antarayas, or what are the difficulties that we face while we meditate? All this has been very clearly discussed in the Bhagavad-Gita. Then Sri Krishna gives us some solution about how to overcome those difficulties. There is the mention of the difficulties and also there is the mention of the solutions for such difficulties. In the seventh chapter that we studied deals with Jnana and Vijnana. Jnana Vijnana Yoga, communion through knowledge and realization, that is knowledge and experience. Here Sri Krishna emphasizes our total reliance on the divine. And he says, Mayi asakta manah partha. You forget other things, but be interested in the divine, in me only. Mayi aveshya, that means you rest upon me. Give up other props and you will be sustained by my grace. That is what Sri Krishna says in the seventh chapter. And we just finished studying the eighth chapter, the Akshara Brahma Yoga. We just concluded the study of it, wherein this eighth chapter began with the various items of knowledge, which an aspirant comes to know as a result of worship and service of a saint. Many experiences will come. To Sri Ramakrishna used to come his disciples and they would try to narrate to him various experiences. He would listen to them very carefully with great attention, and then he would say, good that you are having such experiences, but do not stop over there. You have to climb many more steps in order to reach to the highest. So there are many items of knowledge which sadhaka will come to know. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna, he had acquired so much of knowledge and so many powers. So he asked once Swami Vivekananda, look here, I have acquired so much of power, siddhis. Do you want some? Do you want to take these? So Narendranath, the young man, he said, well, would that help me to achieve the highest? Sri Ramakrishna would say, no. With this, you will be able to attract people. With this, you will be able to help people. But this will not take you to the highest, because there you will be stuck over there. Then Vivekananda, Narendranath said, no, I do not want any of these. So they come as a matter of fact. It just comes when you are performing spiritual practices. So many of these siddhis, attainments will come. But do not stop over there. Go forward, go onward. And in the 8th chapter, Sri Krishna discusses the subject of how to prepare oneself to face the inevitable. That is, how to prepare oneself to face death. This is a very significant chapter for us, because we know somewhat how to live, but none of us teaches us how to die. Whereas Sri Krishna here, he says, worship, serve a saint or an avatara, and then you will be focusing your attention on that saint or an avatar, an incarnation of the divine. And at the time of leaving this body, when your thoughts are focused upon the saint or of an avatar, then you will be released from this body and you will achieve to the highest. Sri Krishna also talks about focusing one's attention on the Atman, the self that is within oneself. And if one focuses on the self that is within oneself, at the time of death, one will definitely be freed totally from the bonds of this samsara. So we have studied it in great detail, and we will be entering into the 9th chapter, which is called as Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. Swami Atmeshananda ji, who translated this book, he translates it as the sovereign science and sovereign secret. Sovereign secret, science and secret. That is Raja. Raja means king, royal. Royal knowledge and royal secret. Raja Vidya. That is, Raja Vidya means it is the best knowledge that you can ever get. The highest knowledge. Because the best knowledge is given to the princes when they study. They are given the best. They go to the best schools, or they get the best teachers. Therefore, this knowledge is the best. And he also says this is a secret. This knowledge also is very secret. Guhya, guha, it comes from the root guha means a cave. When we want to find some treasures, we go into the cave and find treasures, gold and diamonds and other things. If you want to get all of them, then you need to dig, and then you need to drill, and then you need to go into the cave to get that. So here he says that I am giving you this secret. Secrets are best kept by the rulers or the kings. For example, the government, the prime minister keeps all the state secrets. The kings used to keep all the state secrets, because if the secret is leaked, if it gets into the hands of the lesser competent persons, it will be either wasted or it will be misused. For example, the nuclear secret of a nation is kept by only the president or the highest authority, the prime minister of the nation. If it gets into the hands of terrorists, then they will create havoc in the world. So here he says that this is a secret. And second thing is that one must be an adhikari. That means a suitable, a qualified person to get this. Christ says that don't throw pearls before the swine. If you throw pearls before the swine, it will think that it is food, and then it will try to bite, and then it will try to damage the pearls. So do not throw this in front of the lesser competent people. So in the 8th chapter, the truth about the imperishable Brahman, Akshara, Brahma, was taught, and in this chapter, the 9th chapter, the topic of Saguna Brahman comes. That means God who manifests himself as a being, a human being, or God with attributes. Both of these meanings can be understood. Saguna, Sakara, Brahman, or just Saguna Brahman. So, Sri Krishna here, in this chapter, we will see, he identifies himself with this Saguna Brahman, with God with form. Why? Because if we follow him, if we worship him, if we meditate on him, we get the same benefit as meditating upon the Nirguna Brahman. So there are two words in Sanskrit language. One is called as pratika. Pratika means a symbol. The Om and all the other symbols that we see over here are all called as the pratika, symbols. It represents an idea. It represents a concept. And then pratima, the image, the photo or an image, it also represents a concept, a personality. So, either you worship a pratika, that means a symbol, or you worship a pratima, which is very easily accessible to us, which is wherein we can relate ourselves to a form. None of us can think of anything without form. Even if we think of, for example, space, we think of it as a big disk, like the space as a big disk. Or if we think of ocean, we think of it with beaches and bounds. So anything that we think has got its limitations. And therefore, why not make use of that attitude of having limitation? Why not we make use of this faculty that has been given to us to meditate or worship the divine? So that is how we come to this chapter, and we'll study this chapter. Sometimes Sri Krishna, in the past chapters we have seen, Sri Krishna sometimes condemns the worship of lower forms of the divine. That is, those who worship God for the sake of some benefits, he condemns them. But at the same time, he appreciates the worship of all symbols of the divine. But the catch is that you should have the thought that the Supreme Being is being represented in that symbol or in that image. Think of any image or any form. In Hinduism, we worship even Ravana, the demon king. There are clans who worship Ravana as the divine. It's all right, but just impose upon that divine the attributes of the supreme, kind and benevolent God, not the terrible personality of Ravana or of other beings. So, Sri Krishna says, you worship any deity for that matter, but impose or bring in the concept that I am everywhere, in everything and everywhere. In fact, here he commands us to worship God through word, shabda, that is through mantras, etc., and then through deed, our actions, and also in our mind. So, three things: thought, word and deed. Through all these three avenues, we should think of the divine, meditate upon the divine, perform the seva or service to the divine. So, we will begin this study of the 9th chapter. We will study one verse first. The first verse, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyamyanasuyave Jnanam vijnana sahitam yajñātva mokshyase shubhat. Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami. I shall now declare to you who are endowed with reverence, pravakshyami, anasuyave. I will come to that. Asuya is hating somebody or jealousy of somebody is called as asuya. So, one of the first qualifications of a devotee, what is the first qualification of the devotee? Sri Krishna addresses Arjuna as a person who does not have any kind of jealousy or meanness. Yeah, that is more appropriate. Meanness. Pettiness, meanness, if these things are there, one cannot be a devotee of the divine. In fact, no truth can enter our heart if there is meanness over there, if there is pettiness over there. So that is what he says. You are, O Arjuna, one who has no asuya. You do not have any jealousy. You do not have any meanness. You do not have any pettiness. Why does he say so? Because when he started waging the war, or when he came to wage the war, Arjuna was very strong, there is no doubt. But when he saw that on the opposite side, his own kith and kin are there, or those whom he respected, they are there. So there was no meanness in his heart, and there was a lot of love and affection towards his enemies also. That's why Sri Krishna addresses him here as Anasuya, one who does not have any jealousy or any meanness. So, Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami. I speak to you about this. That is, know that I, here Sri Krishna is indicating himself, and you, that means my devotee, are non-different. I and you are non-different. Know the relationship between you and me. When Sri Ramakrishna used to sometimes tell his devotees, if they were very close to him, he would say, know who this is. He would never say I. Know who this is. It is enough to know who this is and who you are. That means you and me. What is our relationship between the two of us? I am yourself and you are myself. That is the understanding that one comes to when one approaches or when one becomes involved in the divine, in an avatara. Anasuyave. Jnanam vijnanam vijnana sahitam yajnatva mokshase ashubhat. Jnanam. I will also talk about jnana, knowledge. Knowledge or understanding. And then vijnana sahitam, along with its realization. As I said earlier, science and technology, both are given here. Science is knowledge, technology is vijnana over here. Vijnana is knowledge and experience, intuitive realization or intuitive experience. Sri Ramakrishna used to give an example. Some have seen milk, some have heard about milk, some have heard about milk, some have seen milk, some have tasted milk, and some have drunk it and they have digested the milk. See? Jnana comes under the first two. Hearing and seeing. And now tasting it and making it a part of one's own being. This is a very important part that spiritual life gives to us in our endeavor as a sadhaka, as a spiritual aspirant. Jnana and vijnana. Yes, books give us all this knowledge we are studying today and we are understanding all of this. But when we make it go deeper into ourselves, when we meditate upon this, ponder over it, think about the meaning of these verses within ourselves, and then try to make it our very own, then it reveals its great secrets to us. Many people have said that they when they read a book for the first time, they understand it. But when they read it a second time or a third time or a fourth time, more meaning comes out of the same book that they have read, the same lines that I have read. It gives them more meaning, more so in the scriptures. It will reveal a lot of meanings to us. Jnanam vijnana sahitam yad jnatva. What is the end result of it? Mokshase ashubhat. Ashubhat mokshase. You will be free from ashubha. Shubha, what is shubha? Shubha is that which is benevolent or that which is good. Ashubha is that which is not good. So he says, what is the good that we want? We want that highest good. Not just good, but we want the best over here. The best is oneness with the divine, being always absorbed in the thought of the divine and enjoy the presence of the divine. Have the divine in myself all the time, while waking or sleeping or while dreaming. All the time the thought of the divine becomes a constant. It's a constant thing. think I mentioned some time ago an incident from the life of Swami Madhavanandaji, one of our great saints. He was a president of our organization. At that time he was our general secretary. So one Swami, one young novice brahmachari came and asked him, Swamiji, how is it possible for us to keep our mind always in God? It's so difficult when we are doing all our actions. It is not possible for us to keep our mind in God. Then the Swami did not give an immediate answer. And he said, he was sitting on the table and this person had taken some papers for him to sign. And it had lines drawn, dotted lines that are drawn. And so he said, what is this? Well, it is a line. Well, it is a line, but look at it more clearly. Go near and look at it. Well, yes, it is a straight line. No, look at it more clearly. Oh, it is a dotted line. Several dots make the line, isn't it? So it's a dotted line. So what happens? One dot connects itself to another dot. So if you start your action and then think of the divine, and then there is a pause between two dots, there is a small pause, nano pause. Then you can just, when you are placing another dot, that is when you have finished that work, when you do another work, you just remember the divine once again. So at every moment or at every possible opportunity, you think of the divine. So you see, the dots are all easily connected to each other. So your thought of the divine becomes one continuous flow. That's what Sri Krishna means here. Remember me always. That is, you at the beginning you start thinking of the divine, and if it is a mechanical work which does not require much attention, then you keep on thinking of the divine and do that work. Or if it needs a special attention, then you forget about that and then you concentrate upon your action, and as soon as it is finished, offer it to the divine and then again think of the divine. Like this, small moments, short moments of the remembrances of the divine, may it be the name of the divine or the form of the divine or an action that the divine has performed, Leela Dhyana, thinking of the glories of the divine, whatever it be. Somewhere you bring in the presence of the divine. That is what it is, practicing the presence of the divine at all times. It is possible, it is not impossible. Once we are able to do that, then the thought will become constant. One part of your mind then will be always focused on the worship of the divine. So when you are faced with any trials and tribulations, all that energy that we have conserved, so to say, that we have accumulated, will come to good use at the times when we are in the dumps, as it were. So, idad jnanam vijnana sahitam yajnatva ashubhat mokshase. You will be freed from any ashubha. You will be freed from any evil. So everything Sri Krishna has promised us, the Lord has always promised us that I will take your burden. I will bear your burden. Yoga kshemam ahamyam. Definitely I will bear your burden. But there is a caveat over there. That is, you should think of me. The least that I ask of you is just think of me. So we will be studying this wonderful chapter tomorrow is the birthday of Sri Krishna, Krishna Janma Ashtami, the 8th day when Sri Krishna was born. So let us pray to this Gita Acharya Sri Krishna to help us to remember him. Without the grace of the divine, again, even thinking of the divine is not possible. So let us pray to the Lord to help us to remember him at all times and make our lives blessed and also spread this blessedness to others. Shantakaram Bhujagashayana Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalanayanam Yogirithyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhayaram Sarvalokaikanatham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.